Hey guys, how's it going? This right here is the POCO X3 Pro, which is one of the best phones that you can buy under 20,000. That's it for me. I thought that this phone does come with certain compromises and cutting corners, especially in the camera department if you compare it with the competition. Now that is when I took a look at the spec sheet. However, with the phone in my pocket, I went out, shot some snaps, and I also had the Redmi Note 10 Pro Max with me. And to be honest, the POCO X3 Pro isn't that far behind. Or is it? Or is it not? Well, this is one from Guiding Tech, and you're watching my in-depth camera comparison of the POCO X3 Pro with the supposedly best camera phone under 20,000, which is the Redmi Note 10 Pro Max. Let's get started. Alright, so let's kick things off with some selfies. Here you can see just how similar yet different both the shots are. Now Redmi shot has a higher contrast while POCO has a warmer tone to it. In terms of color accuracy, the Redmi manages to capture my t-shirt's shade a bit better while also having natural skin tones. But it's not to say that POCO is far behind or something. In fact, I would argue that if I were to post an image online, I would actually go with POCO's shot here. Switch to the portrait mode and the edge detection on both the phones is at par. The colors are the same as the normal mode and the Redmi Note 10 Pro Max has the better details as well. Yes, it is a tad bit over sharpened, but it does look slightly more appealing than POCO. Alright, so now we're recording selfie footage from the POCO X3 Pro, which is on my left, and the Redmi Note 10 Pro Max, which is on my right, both at 1080p 30 fps footage. I think the Redmi has better brightness here. The skin tones and everything is just a little bit brighter. It's not softened, just a bit brighter. I think it still has the edge in terms of detailing and everything. But yeah, the overall footage does look a tad bit brighter. Mind you, it's 6 p.m. here right now, so it's not the best of lighting conditions. So I think POCO has better colors, like more neutral colors, I would say. And yeah, now the sun is falling directly on my face, and you can get an idea of how both the phones handle direct sunlight. And now I'm just gonna pan things around. Here you can get an idea of the HDR performance. Let's adjust it, and there you go. Both phones are doing a decent job. Neither one is bad or anything. So if you're simply saying that okay, Redmi Note 10 Pro Max has a better camera and all, I mean, it's better, no doubt, but it's not a massive difference. And it's not like if you go with the POCO X3 Pro, it's just performance for Snapdragon and everything, used to. Alright, so recording 1080p 30 fps footage from the POCO X3 Pro, which is on my left, and the Redmi Note 10 Pro Max, which is on my right side. So we'll pan the camera around, and both the phones, mind you, have the super steady video mode turned on. So ideally you should be getting some sort of stability here. I'm walking in front and you can get an idea of the stability on point. I think they're both doing a decent job, though in terms of colors right now the Redmi Note 10 Pro Max does look a tad bit better, but then again this has an AMOLED panel, so obviously for me right now it looks better. But I'll let you guys be the judge on how the final footage looks like. Overall, in terms of stability and everything, I think they're both at par. There's not a massive difference here anyway, and I think you'll be satisfied with both the phone's results whatsoever. I'm just gonna take a brisk walk and show you the HDR results of both the phones, and here you go. As you can see, this is how the HDR performs. Pretty good on both the phones. I think POCO is doing a slightly better job here in controlling the sun's spread, but I'll let you guys take a personal call on which one you prefer more. Now before we move on to daylight shots, if you're a new viewer here at Guiding Tech, I just want you to know that all of our reviews and camera comparisons on this channel are completely not sponsored by any brand whatsoever. They're unbiased, unfiltered, and are completely and solely my own analysis. In fact, we even give a direct download link to all of the images and videos straight from the devices that you can download for your own use. Check them out, analyze results, and well, make a decision based on that as well. Alright, now let's continue with the analysis. Now coming to daylight shots, in this first frame you can see that while both the phones have similar color profiles and have good HDR performance, the details on Redmi are just amazing. Like even without zooming in, you can see how crystal clear the pixel bin shot is. Zoom in and you can literally see all the veins on the leaf here. Keep in mind that this is indeed a pixel bin image and not a full res 108 megapixel picture. In this next shot, you can see that the Redmi Note 10 Pro Max has better HDR. Now, some of you might argue that the phones have different focus points, and you'd be right. I mean, to match Redmi's performance, I had to focus in the distance to achieve the same HDR. If I tap on the leaf and focus on it, the result changes to this, which is, well, still good, but obviously not as good as Redmi. Still good nonetheless. But if we leave out the element of pure HDR performance, the POCO X3 Pro isn't that far behind the Redmi. For instance, here, both the shots look almost the same, which is incredible. Yes, once again Redmi has more detail, but it's not like POCO shot is far behind or something. Like, just check out these samples. Now, I won't deny that Redmi does outperform POCO, but it's not by a massive margin. In fact, it's a very fine margin. Using software-based oversharpening, the POCO X3 Pro does manage to achieve detailing which is close to the Redmi Note 10 Pro Max, has equally good and sometimes even better and more accurate colors than Redmi, and isn't that bad with HDR either. Now moving on to human subjects, and this is one area where I feel that POCO does a slightly better job than before. It has better colors while Redmi tends to oversaturate everything. That being said, once again Redmi has better details, which is obvious once you zoom in. POCO's shot here looks like a water painting compared to Redmi. Also, if you notice the background, you'll see that while Redmi has that natural depth of field, POCO's oversharpening makes the background also appear as if it is in focus. Now switch to the portrait mode and they're both the same for the most part. Colors are still saturated on Redmi and edge detection is at par on both. However, if you zoom in, Redmi shot seems to be a bit softer now while POCO has its oversharpening kick in. In this frame, with me being a bit closer to the frame, they're both excellent shots with Redmi once again saturating the colors. Now I'll let you guys be the judge on which color profile you like, because in this shot, apart from the colors, everything else seems to be the same. Talking about the ultra-wide sensor, they both share the same 8 megapixel ultra-wide sensor and the results are exactly the same. Well, kinda. Already in the normal frame, you can see the difference in color profile. Switch to the ultra-wide shots and while they both offer the same level of detailing, there is still an apparent difference in terms of colors. Lastly, we have low light shots, and one thing I want to highlight is that both the phones suffer from these lens flares with lights. Some of you might like it because, it does look kinda cool, but it's still a fault from a technical point of view. Nonetheless, keeping that aside, both the shots look incredibly similar. Turn the night mode on and, well, they're both at par now. In this next shot also, you'll notice the same lens flare issue. However, leave that part aside and you can see that POCO has a better illumination here. That being said, Redmi does have less noise, so that's a plus too. Switch to the night mode and you have two excellent shots. They both have a different color profile, but for what it's worth, the Redmi does have a better balance of pixel binning and oversharpening. Also, some of you have been asking me how the phones perform in pitch dark conditions. Well, I'm not sure who captures in pitch dark that often, but here's how the phones perform in both pitch dark and pitch dark with night mode. Feel free to decide based on your liking, but what I can say right now is that while POCO does have better illumination, Redmi does have more detailing, so yeah, there's that. So, who's the real winner here? Well, it's safe to say that the Redmi Note 10 Pro Max still keeps its crown intact. It still manages to outperform the POCO X3 Pro, which is great. But there are two things that I want to illustrate here. First, the POCO X3 Pro isn't that far behind. When the phone was launched, I was like, yeah, okay, the cameras will be a little bit disappointing. It's a budget gaming phone, so everyone is just going to focus on the Snapdragon performance here. Everything is going to be great in terms of performance for gaming and all that stuff. But cameras are going to be a big disappointment. Thankfully, they aren't. The cameras are pretty good. They are almost neck to neck with the Redmi Note 10 Pro Max and sometimes even manage to outshine it. So that's great. The problem lies with the fact that you can only make it out when you're comparing both the images on the same panel. Like when I was shooting with the POCO X3 Pro and the Redmi Note 10 Pro Max side by side, I was like, yeah, the Redmi is just crushing the POCO X3 Pro because the Redmi's panel is AMOLED and that panel definitely makes the colors and everything look so punchy and vibrant. POCO X3 Pro has, well, one of the best LCD panels, but is still an LCD panel at the end of the day. And that is the second point that I wanted to illustrate. To the average POCO X3 Pro user, they would feel that their camera is not performing up to the mark. It is only when you launch it on a good display, like on your computer, or send it on to your friend with an AMOLED panel display, that is when you realize that your phone can actually perform very well. The camera on this thing is really very good. It's just that the display here, well, doesn't do justice to those photos. So just keep that thing in mind. It's like cameras on the POCO X3 Pro aren't a compromise by any means whatsoever. And well, that was it. If you like this video, make sure to let us know by giving us a thumbs up and subscribing to our channel for more awesome tech content. Also, we have some amazing new camera comparisons and some reviews lined up for you guys. So make sure that you have the bell notification turned on so you do not miss out any of our videos. Till then, this is One from Guiding Tech, and I'll see you in the next one.